Welcome, one and all. Good afternoon. Today we have gathered here for the second session of second day, 1 week international e-FDP. Today we have an eminent speaker, Dr. Pramod Kashid sir, Executive Director, Clinical Trial Management, Medspace Singapore. Sir had completed PhD in Pharmaceutical Science and MPharm from SVKM NMIMS University, Mumbai. Postgraduate diploma in clinical research from the Academy of Clinical Excellence at Bombay College of Pharmacy, Mumbai. MBA from University of Oxford, England. Currently, sir is working as an executive director, clinical trial management, Asia Pacific Medspace Singapore, leader in the global clinical research management. Previously, sir was working with the clinical research associate at the multinational pharmaceutical company Sanofi Aventis, in collaboration with the global giants like Bayer, Syneos, Pra Health Science, and establishment of clinical research operation in 13 countries in OPEC regions. Sir has an active contribution as a therapeutic expertise in cardiology, endocrinology, neurology, oncology, dermatology, and also contribution to the development of life-saving breakthrough therapies, mostly in treatment of solid tumors, then thyroid cancer, in the pulmonary embolism, in very rare disease that is POMS disease. Sir is also having as a board of editors on Pharma Focus Asia Healthcare magazine and has a numerous paper and presented posters in various international journals and conference. Sir has awarded with the certified projects management and professionals accredited by the Project Management Institute USA. Sir had recognized as a finalist for the prestigious Pharma Times International Clinical Research of the Year Award in London in 2014 and 17. Recognized as a director scholar by said Business School, University of Oxford, and recognized as a visionary leader in clinical research domain by Silicon India magazine and by Health 2 conference in Dubai in 2022. So I request Sir, Dr. Pramod Kashid sir, to start their session on innovation and trends in global clinical research.
Yeah, thank you, sir. So I hope you can hear me well. Just wanted to test it before we get
Yes, sir.
started. Okay. So you can see my screen and you can hear me well. So
Yes.
and in case if anybody has any questions, I think they can put it in the messenger and chat box, and you can let me know because I can't see the chat box here from here while presenting it. Okay.
Okay, sir.
Yeah. So yeah. So those who are on the call, just to clarify a few things here from presentation point of view, uh, I can't see you all, so I don't know whether you understand what I'm going to talk or not. So better whenever I take a pause, feel free to ask questions, and we'll be happy to answer those questions. Okay, so for today's presentation, I'm planning to just give you a high-level overview on what's happening in the clinical research world, and also I would like to discuss and get the feedbacks from you as well. So I'm not well familiar with the pedagogy of teaching, so pardon me in case I'm a bit fast in speaking or I'm a bit distracting towards other topics. So keep me updated in case you want me to give more detail on specific slides. So overall, we'll quickly go through the drug development cycle, clinical research overview, and then the stakeholders around it. What are the departments involved in it, and then the life cycle of a typical clinical research project, and what are the recent advances and trends coming in the clinical research domain. And I'll be happy to answer the questions and answer at the end. And again, at the outset, we would like you to complete one of the brief survey, where we will have uh, ba- QR code and link on the screen, and your college staff will also share the link separately with you on either on the email, or if you have any WhatsApp group separately. So to begin with, I want you to take a pause. I will take a pause of a minute, and you can Google search or anyone on call knows that how many new drugs are approved by the US FDA. Maybe say in last 5 year or last 1 year, and for the treatment of cancer. Anybody can tell names of couple of drugs which has came in the market or approved by the US FDA in last 4 to 5 years. I'm not expecting people to know the names, but in case anybody follows the oncology research or cancer research. Okay, so the other general question is, uh, does anybody know any breakthrough therapy approved by the US FDA in last 5 years, except the COVID-19 vaccine? I don't want to talk about the COVID-19 vaccine, except the COVID-19 vaccine in any therapeutic area. You can Google it. I'm taking a pause of 10 seconds. You can Google the answer. Any breakthrough therapies on any life-threatening disease approved by the US FDA in last 5 years, maybe starting from 2019 onwards or so. I think there's some lag period of a couple of seconds when I speak and when you hear. Okay, so I can't get any answer, but the next question here is, if anybody has Googled it and you know the name of a drug or a company, I want to know whether the drug is available in India or not. Okay, I want you to speak up now. People can ask questions there. Let me see if I can see the chat box. Sir, can I see the chat box? Anybody answering in the chat box?
Sir, right now we cannot see that anyone has answered. If any case, if someone answers, I'll let you know. I'll display the comment for you.
Yes, but are they allowed to ask question in the live meeting?
Yes. They are allowed to ask questions. If any participant has any questions, they can post it in the chat box, and we can show it to sir then.
Okay, okay, that means we can't hear them. It's just they can
Yeah, we
say.
cannot hear them, but we can definitely see their questions, what they are posting on the chat box.
Yes, because I want them to Google this one
Yeah.
and get some answer. The reason is that will set the stage for our today's presentation, because we wanted to bring the reality of clinical research in India, or the impact of not having the new drugs available in the market.
Okay, sir. So if anyone
Yeah,
answers the question, I'll
yeah,
definitely display it for
yeah.
you, sir.
Sure. Okay.
Thank you, sir.
So moving on to the next slide. So you have this QR code on the screen, and also I think college staff must have shared the link with you earlier. So you can post this link in the comment section on YouTube or somewhere. This link they
Yes,
can
sir.
use
I'll
it,
post it right away.
or if they have they are attending for mobile, they can complete the questionnaire. Yeah, I'm taking a 2 minute pause because it will take you 1 minute to complete these 4 questions. And let me just
So for all the
see there.
participants, we have posted the link that sir has just shared with you in the comment box. Please click on the link and do the required procedure. Yeah, thank you.
Just let me know in case people find it difficult to go.
Everyone is requested to click on the link and fill the form that Sir has just shared with you.
Yeah, they can scan the QR code if they are attending from mobile, and it will be easy for them. Okay, so let me see the outcome. So we've received 24 responses, and I'm just presenting the results which we have received from 25 responses, wherein the first question is, how well do you know about the clinical research? Good, people are increasing the responses now. It's around 3.5. Uh, Rating, how many phases of clinical trials are there? Okay, almost 90% have uh, understand that, so I don't need to explain more on that. Whose approval is required to conduct new drug clinical trials in India? So 55% of the attendees have answered it correctly. So maybe in case you have any questions, I will be happy to answer that more. Um, and what is required from a subject before participating in clinical trial? Signed informed consent form, almost 86% have answered it correctly, so I don't need to elaborate more. And phase two clinical trials are generally involved how many patients? So 100 to 200, again 80% have answered it correctly. And exactly on this question, I will be elaborating a bit more on uh, what are the new trends, uh, what is the industry doing nowadays to basically change the narrative about the phases of the clinical trials. Do we really need to categorize the clinical trial in phase one, two, three, four, and how do we differentiate that? Okay, so I'll just quickly go through that one more time and answer this, like 53 respondents. So how many phases? This is very obvious. Again, on this question, whose approvals are required to conduct the clinical trials in India? So some of you have said CDSCO. Of course, CDSCO is correct, though the DCGI is more precise, because the DCGI is a body approving the clinical trial, which comes under CDSCO, and we also need AEC approvals. So the first answer should have more basically responses here. Ethics committee and ICMR, that's the wrong answer again. And health ministry, 1% have said health ministry also. Again, that's not the correct answer there. And to enroll any patients or subject in the clinical trial, we do need an informed consent is a mandatory. Clinical trial agreement is not mandatory, or patient never signed the clinical trial agreement. No. So medical history is a part of the process which happens after consenting. Okay. So coming back to again to our presentation. So thank you for completing this survey, which really will help in focusing the content during the presentations. Okay. I hope you can see my screen again. Okay, that's on the screen, which you see is a traditional drug development process, which you see, which you study in your routine pharmacology books, where we start with the preclinical, then we move into the lead identifications. We do lead identification, lead optimization, and then we go into the preclinical phase, and then we go into the clinical phase of the study, and then uh, after once we complete the clinical phase of the study, naturally we submit for marketing application to health authorities, and we get approvals and we market the drug. That's a typically standard path which we follow for any new drugs. The stages of the development. Typically, we say it four phases: phase one, phase two, phase three. And what is the success rate for in the drug development? The success rate goes down um, along with the phases. So when you are in the early drug discovery phase, particularly in the laboratory phase, where chemists and the pharmacologists are identifying and optimizing the leads and all. So we say more than 5,000 compound we screen to get one compound to move to preclinical stage. From 250 compound from preclinical stage can move to around 5 compound to the clinical phase, and from 5 compound, one compound may make it to regulatory review and large scale manufacturing stage. And then we go into the phase four trials, which is a post marketing surveillance or mm, what do you say, real world evidence trials. Typically, historically, this all these phases is to take from the preclinical, or say a preclinical to clinical to the marketing approval. It used to take 10 to 14 years. But gradually, with the advances in the technology, updates in the regulations, uh, we have brought in some efficiencies on certain type of the trials. And that's where again my question in the initial survey lies is about how many patients we need in the phase two clinical trials. So answer is here, we do need around 100 to 300 patients traditionally, but there is no guidelines to define this. There's no regulations to define this. So that means you can even do phase two clinical trial with 40 patients or 30 patients as well. And the phase one clinical trial, as minimum as you can say 3 patients, you can do it. There's no guideline to say that 20 patients, 30 healthy volunteers, or 40 healthy volunteers. But what we follow the industry practices, which has been basically practicing from last several decades, is around 20 to 40 patients for phase one trials, 100 to 300 patients for phase two trials, 1,000 to 3,000 patients for phase three trials. Typically in the therapeutic areas like cardiovascular, diabetes, metabolic disease, and all. That doesn't happen in oncology or rare disease space. It's really hard to find these many patients there. And post-marketing surveillance or phase four trials don't have any limits on the patients. Any questions so far? So let me know in case there is any questions on the chat box there.
No, sir. We cannot see any questions currently in the chat box.
Okay. Okay, so here is the case study which would challenge your theoretical understanding, or may bring few questions on the board. Here, the drug is already marketed in US and certain developed world, which include UK, Japan, Korea, Singapore, Australia. At the moment, the marketing approval for this drug was received in 2020. I think during the COVID time only. The brand name is Retomo. Uh, Typically, this drug is being used for treating non-small cell lung cancer. That's why I asked a question about non-small cell lung cancer, thyroid cancers, and some other solid tumors. And this drug being invented now, we can see the company is Lilly, but actual inventor was Loxo Oncology. It's an American biotech firm. The firm which was which had around a couple of hundred employees and valuation around a couple of $100 million to $200 million, which is around 160 crore Indian rupees. But because of this drug, the company was sold or acquired for 8 billion US dollar. Okay. So this was the one of the blockbuster drug in recent history. Um, but for this drug to come to the market, there was only one clinical trial conducted. That trial include phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, all combined. Okay, and no comparative arm. And it was open label study, global study. I'm presenting this data, but the data is in the public domain. That's why I'm presenting it. Although we do have some insights about this drug internally, which is confidential, which I can't share. The design of the trial which was used was the adaptive study design. That's where we don't categorize the trial by phase, like phase 1, phase 2, phase 3. No, we just say it's a clinical trial. Okay, and this is the only available oral therapy, targeted therapy for treating targeted red fusion positive non-small cell lung cancer patients. Basically, red is called rearranging during transfection. This is a receptor. So in those patients where the red receptor is activated or mutated, this is the treatment of choice with 100% basically result. So we enrolled only around 127 patients globally. This trial was completed at the end by 300 patients at the end, but by the time the company submitted marketing application, there were only data of around 127 patients there. And the development for this drug, typically if we say phase 1, our company started in May 2017, and the marketing approval received in May 2020. So if you see the period for the development, clinical development, which is just 3 years here. Typically, it takes 10 years, but in this case, just 3 years and one protocol, one study, and you get the marketing approval. This is slightly different than what we study in the books about the clinical phases and the development methodology, which I presented on the first slide. I will take a pause here before we move to the next slide to answer the questions. So let me know in case you see any questions in the chat box.
So as of now, I cannot see any questions in the chat box.
Okay. So then we can move to next slide. But this was the most important slide which I wanted to present here to show you what is the upcoming trends coming in the clinical research. Because this is one slide, but you can Google it more about this drug. You can Google it about adaptive study designs, and if you have any questions, you can feel free to reach out to us afterwards as well. So let's move to the next slide. Why it's not moving? Okay. Hopefully it works now. Okay, so global clinical research, which is market size around $60 billion plus. So it's growing industry, growing for Asia Pacific more than 10% of CAGR. India is growing more than 12% of CAGR, and the fastest growth which we have seen in India, China, Japan, Taiwan, and Korea. And more public awareness has happened about the clinical trial after COVID-19 vaccine trials, because everybody started knowing about what's clinical trial, particularly during the COVID-19 pandemic. And the upcoming trends in terms of the development is oncology, ATMP, and rare diseases. Then just to give you a quick idea about who are the stakeholders involved in the clinical research, there are typically 5 stakeholders involved in the clinical research, which is sponsor or pharma company, oblique CRO, which is MedPace, where I work, and the investigators, these are the doctors who are doing the clinical trial, ethics committees, um, regulatory authorities, and patient is the most important stakeholder in clinical trials. And if you see in the clinical research companies or CRO, typically CROs, uh, which are the departments involved in the CROs? Although it appears like, okay, clinical research is one of the division in the pharma company, but we there are multiple departments within the clinical research unit itself. One of the unit is called as clinical project management, who takes care of project management oversight, ensuring the projects are completed in a timely manner within the cost and with quality. The another is clinical monitoring, who takes care of oversight on site management, monitoring the data in the hospitals. Then the regulatory submission team, then the investigational products supply and management team, the team who would manage the study startups. The other team would typically manage the sites contracts and budgets. There will be another group of people who will be managing the vendors. And then the most important department is we call it quality assurance and auditing team, and training and development team. Additionally, again, we need to have a separate safety management team, which is we call as pharmacovigilance team, medical monitoring team, data management team, biostatistics, and medical writing, and then IRT teams. These are typically around 10 to 12 different departments in the clinical research. Apart from that, the separate functions for needed for each clinical trial, particularly global clinical trial, is central laboratories, bioanalytical laboratories, ECG and imaging laboratories, and sometimes we have the in-house phase one clinical trial units as well separately. So typical life cycle of a clinical research projects. Any global clinical research projects which goes from 1 year to 5 years. On average, most of the trials runs for between 2 to 3 years. And it starts with designing any protocols, and then designing the core study documents, then selecting the investigators, then completing the regulatory submissions for respective countries, getting it approved, then initiating the sites, then enrolling the patients, monitoring the data, and then completing the database lock, and basically after that submitting the clinical study report. That's a typical life cycle of any clinical research projects, which takes 2 to 3 years. What are the recent advances in the clinical research in last, I would say, 10 years or so? Earlier, we used to use paper-based case record forms, which we called as CRFs. Introduction of the EDC technology, maybe around 10 years back, now has made our life more easy, and now more advances with the AI or generative AI in the EDC technology platforms is helping us to expedite the outcomes. Then remote monitoring. Earlier, the clinical research monitoring used to happen only in the hospitals, but now we can do certain monitorings remotely as well. Historically, we used to use the paper trial master files, but now we're using electronic trial master files. Historically, we were using more of Excels and PowerPoints to track the data, but now with the introduction of CTMS, clinical trial management systems, we can more do everything remotely. And also, this can be a data visualization tool as well. E-diaries and e-pros, patient support services, e-consenting has been introduced during COVID. And another term which you must have heard about is the DCT, decentralized clinical trials. Now, the upcoming trend is, apart from the pharma and biotech companies, even the technology companies are entering in this space, which is one of the examples was Google and Amazon has already entered in this space. In terms of type of therapies, more of advanced therapies are coming in, which includes stem cells treatments as well. And the another approach, which is upcoming, although was not common, which we call as a platform trials, wherein 2 to 3 pharma companies comes together and plan one trial where they can use the common comparator arm. They may be having 3 separate drugs under test for them, but the comparator arm may be same. So that we call as a platform trials. And now more and more focus is coming back on patient diversity. Okay, so in conclusion, what are the upcoming trends and innovations happening in the world of clinical research? Is summary which is on the screen is centralized services are coming in, FSP is coming in, EMR, electronic medical record is another trend coming in. More and more new illnesses which are surfacing, which one of them was COVID-19, of course. Then trial designs are changing from the traditional trial design to the adaptive trial design. um, More and more trials are moving in even in medical device and wearable devices space as well. Home healthcare is becoming a new trend again, or integral part of the any global clinical trial. NGS testing, particularly in oncology clinical trial, is coming up. And for drug distribution point of view, direct to patient is a new trend again. Instead of asking patients to come to the hospitals, we've been transporting medicine directly to patients' place as well. Okay, so again, this in this industry, if any pharmacy student want to come in, it's a typically we want to decide whether you want to choose the traditional career path or future path. So we say as clinical operations, clinical development is a future path. Traditional path you may have like in production, manufacturing, and marketing are the traditional paths or formulation developments, but the future path is certainly about the clinical research. So this is just a representation. I'm not going to go through details here on this, but these are different departments within the clinical research units of clinical research division. You can find career options and where are the opportunities for pharmacy graduates or master or PhD candidates. The opportunity lies at three places: one of the CROs, pharma and biotechs, and even in the regulatory authorities at global level. I'll just keep this slide and give you a quick introduction about MedPace within 5 minutes, and then we'll have 10 minutes for the question and answer at the end. Okay. So I work for a company called MedPace, which is headquartered in the US, Cincinnati, or Ohio-based, founded in 1992. This is one of the top 10 global CRO, listed on the Nasdaq with market cap around $20 billion. And we focus mainly on more on phase 1 to phase 3 trial. Focus therapeutic area is oncology, cardiovascular, metabolic, and neurology as well. We have our team and operations more than 40 countries globally, including India. So in this part of the world, in the Asia Pacific, we have our operations, which I manage, is from India, Singapore, Taiwan, Korea, Australia, New Zealand, Thailand, and China, and Japan as well. This is our headquarters in US. Okay. So over to you, sir, back for questions and answers.
Yeah, sir. I cannot see questions in the chat box. I'll just put in a message for all the participants. Those who have any questions can please post their questions in the chat box.
Yeah, no worries. If there are no questions, even they can send it afterwards as well. I'll be happy to answer.
Uh, Excuse me, sir.
Yeah.
Sir, I have one questions. As an plain M.Pharm pharmacology student, what are the opportunities for the fresher in the Department of Clinical Research? Means how we can move towards the this phase as a fresher. Is there any courses needed, or is there any uh, further qualification is needed for that as
Typically,
a
there's no,
clinical
yeah,
research?
for yeah, there's no courses needed, but I had one slide which I could quickly browse through because I saw the no questions from the students or faculties. But what I would suggest is they should start preparing if they, in case somebody want to get into this field, at least 1 year in advance, like in before completing the course, and accordingly find the companies where there are opportunities and see the roles which are available in the market and accordingly prepare. So you don't need to complete any specific courses. They can come into the data management team, data management department, or clinical project management department as like in project management associates. There are you would see the openings like clinical research associate entry level. That can be again a good start for them. Apart from that, they can come as a clinical regulatory specialist, clinical startup specialist, as well as if you see at the site level in hospitals as well. There are openings like clinical site coordinators, clinical site coordinators. These are all positions available. So, but typically, what they need to do is they need to start preparing in advance. They can't just go and appear for the interviews there. So most of the time, what we see from pharmacy students is they're good in the theory, like an understanding about the ADME of any drugs and all, understanding about the phases of the clinical trial, but typically they do not come prepared reading like updates in the ICH-GCP, what are the essential documents needed for the clinical trial, what are the sub process for the health authority submissions, or EC submissions. These are the few practical things which they can read on their own.
Oh,
Okay, so we have
thank you, sir.
questions, sir. We have displayed the questions on the screen.
Yeah. Are there any condition needed for it? So there's no condition needed for it actually. You can plan the trial as an adaptive design. So meaning is like, and you would be adjusting your trial design depending on the outcome of the trials on ongoing basis. So ultimately, what would happen is you would end up in revising your trial protocol every 6 months, and this has been done typically in the indications where you see the rare diseases or rare type of cancers. You can't find like thousands of patients out there. uh, this the adaptive design is a choice there. You don't need to use an adaptive design for a trial involving hypertension and diabetes and all. Yeah, so how do we get the projects on clinical trial as a startup company? So the answer is question is too generic, but it depends on the startup company itself. Like what type of capabilities do you have? What type of trials do you want to do? I would suggest depending on your capability, then you can target the clients, because it depends again, you want global clients or local clients as well. So there are a lot of local companies as well who do the trials in India, so you may focus on those first and then look for the international business as well. Pharmacovigilance comes under phase 4 clinical trials. No, the pharmacovigilance itself is a different department, I would say, and we should not link that with the phase of the trial. It start with maybe from preclinical to the marketed products. So all phases of the clinical trials should involve the pharmacovigilance, particularly safety surveillance, and then traditionally what we used to say we called as marketed surveillance trials, and some people mistake it as drug safety surveillance trials. But no, the primary objective of those trials are safety surveillance, but then there should be a dedicated pharmacovigilance unit at all phases. Some ring systems also fall under. I'm sorry, I'm not clear about the question. About it's some ring system. Maybe if you can elaborate, then I'll be able to answer that.
So, sir, these were the questions that were asked from the participants. And for the last question, if the participant can be more descriptive and elaborative about the question, then sir can answer the question.
No problem. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Today the session was wonderful. Sir has very nicely explained about the traditional drug discovery process, the stages of drug discovery with the successful therapies. Sir explained the phases of clinical development with then case studies of the market product Retimo, the upcoming trends in clinical research, the probable stakeholders in clinical research, the life cycle of clinical research projects, what are the recent advances in clinical research with more emphasis on EDC technology, remote monitoring, CTMS system, and lastly, sir also explained the opportunities after the clinical research for the new pharmacy graduate, what are the expertise, what are needed. And I hope all these things that will be very helpful for the all the audience. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you. No problem.
This is our certificate of appreciation from our side. Thank you.
Thank you.